Unfiltered. I'm your host, Blaine Pudvey, and I'm joined now by a special guest, our recurring guest, Grant McCagg of recruits.ca. Welcome to the show.
I'm glad you decided to have me recurring.
Well, I mean, somebody's got to come on the show and do stuff that people want to watch because it's not going to be me. I mean, I can do sock puppets, but that's the extent of my talent.
Got to see that sometime. Let me know when you're doing that show.
Well, after a couple of drinks, you never know what might happen. Things got weird at Tootsie's in Nashville.
Yeah. How was Tootsie's anyway?
It was good. Yeah,
Like
the
all the
beer
NHL
was a little
bigwigs seem to go
overpriced.
there. Eh?
Yeah, it did seem that way. There was quite a few of them milling about. GMs, coaches. The same with the junior teams as well.
Good. Good. Wish I could have been there.
You missed out on a good time. I know Matt and I held each other up on the way back to the hotels.
There's no video of that, is there?
No.
Okay, good. Because like when McDavid got caught there being held up by somebody when he was walking back to the car, that didn't turn out so good for him. But apparently
Well, we're not pro athletes.
true, not quite as famous.
No, slightly less.
Okay. Okay.
So for this show, it's not going to be a long one. We're going to kind of try and keep it fairly condensed, just to respect your time. But we're going to talk
Okay
about the
by me.
draft and what. Yeah, we'll talk about the draft and what you saw at the development camp afterwards. So we'll dive right in and we'll talk about your draft list going into the draft. Who you had at the top of your list?
Okay. We're gonna go back to that, eh?
Well, we've got
Um,
to set the stage, right?
well, yeah. Well, who I had at the top of my list is not who got drafted yet. So I don't know whether that's good or bad or, indifferent or it's nice to have a different list, I suppose. You know, it'll be fun to look 5 years down the road and see if Dvorsky and Leonard are better than Smith and Carlson. Because I, you know, I mean, I've said right from quantified it with saying that they may not get more regular season points, but that doesn't mean that they won't be better, more valuable players to their teams in the NHL. Um, Personally, I think that they're winners and they're going to help a team at playoff time, especially. Leonard uh, reminds me of a Sam Bennett type. I've said that a few times, and you know, Leonard, sorry, Bennett was a major reason why Florida made the finals, I think. And Leonard, you saw it, like who scored the gold medal winning goal for the US at the U18s. It was Leonard, steps up in the big moments. So while both of us are happy with Reinbacher going to the Habs, we understand the pick, I think, in discussions that we've had, but
Yep.
neither of us would have minded Leonard being the Habs pick either. Safe to say.
Yeah, yeah. He was at the top of my list that I had to go at 5 for Montreal. I felt that he was a good fit for them. He brought the type of hockey that you need in the playoffs, like you mentioned. And I thought that that was something that the Canadiens didn't have very much of in the system.
Yeah,
So for that reason, I wanted to see him go, but he did.
Reinbacher. I mean,
Yep.
right defenseman. A defenseman's been taken in the top 5 in the past 22 drafts. So I don't think there's a lot of people that were surprised by the pick, but given that fact alone, you have to understand why he was taken. Um, Nemec was taken ahead of Logan Cooley last year. You know, because of the value of a defenseman. Um, They can play if they end up being in your top three, they're going to play more than 20 minutes a game. They're going to play in all situations, and Reinbacher has that potential. There are no discernible flaws in his game, I don't think. He's got size, skating, some offensive ability that could see him play on perhaps your second power play. I think he's going to be on killing penalties. He's going to be on at the last minute of a game, protecting a lead. That's not something Matvei Michkov was going to be doing for any team, I don't think. So you have to keep the puck out of your own net at the same time that you have to put it in the other team's net. So I fully understood the pick by the Habs.
And it's the style of play that he has as well. He's not just a big guy who plays like a Hal Gill. He's very mobile. He defends extremely well without having to be taking himself out of position to throw hits. He's positioned extremely well. And more importantly, he has an excellent first pass and he can carry the puck up ice. He controls the play for his team. So he's able to get pucks up ice, get them into the offensive zone, and generate offense in that way, which is something the Canadiens still need.
Absolutely. One of the reasons why both Nemec and Reinbacher were picked so high in the draft, I believe, was just the poise and confidence that they showed at such a young age playing against men. They did it in their league and they did it at the World Championships. They're just, I think a high floor is something that gets maybe underestimated when it comes to a top 10 pick, but you don't want a guy that doesn't work out. You want a player that is almost can't miss to be a top 4 or a top 6 forward. That is very appealing. Now, when that's your floor, but your ceiling is he could be a top pairing right defenseman. That's a nice, tier to be in. And you're making that pick. You're going to sleep that night with very few worries. You know that you're getting a future solid NHL player who could be a 25-minute night guy for you in important playoff games. So I don't know how a fan can be irate about that. It's just the potential of Michkov doing what no other 5'10" Russian winger has done since Pavel Bure is exciting, but there so many things have to go right for that to happen, including him developing for 3 years in Russia the way you want. How is he going to adapt to the North American game playing 3 more years in the KHL? Will he pick up NHL habits? Will they be trying to teach him? They aren't molding him to play in the NHL. They want him to help them win hockey games. That's, they've got jobs that they want to keep, just like NHL coaches and GMs. So there's so much unknown with Michkov, and there isn't with Reinbacher, and I think that was very attractive to the Canadiens.
And before I go back to Reinbacher, just a quick aside on Michkov. His interviews apparently went okay, but he didn't do anything to really wow anyone or convince anyone to take that risk. And all the talk that he's had since has been, I wanted to move down. I wanted to move down to this team or that team. Now he's saying Philly because they picked him. But if that's the case, how much effort did he actually put into the interview? Like, if you don't put enough effort in or show enough interest, why would the team take that risk?
Yeah, well, apparently he just said, "Oh, I only want to do interviews with this team and this team." Yet, there were already teams that weren't going to draft him, so that really narrowed it. It's really narrowing it down. And he used an interpreter as well. which I can't think. I'm sorry, but that couldn't thrill. I don't think that would thrill the teams that did interview him. Uh,
Mm.
it other Russian players in the past decade, at least, how many top picks have needed an interpreter? Top 10 picks in the past decade for the NHL draft. It's not very many.
Not
You know,
many. No, not many.
I mean, we can go back to Kostitsin, but that's 20 years ago now, 15 years ago, or whatever it was, And I mean, that didn't work out great, right? But uh, it shows that, is he going to need an interpreter 3 years from now? How much is he going to work on simulating with language? And of course, what I've heard about his what kind of teammate he is, maybe perhaps him not learning English would be actually a good thing. So players, his future teammates don't hear what he has to say. But anyways, that's another story for another day.
Yeah, there was some whispers about that running around Nashville. Whispers. It was openly said what kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
teammate that he was. So that's another reason that teams may have overlooked him. I know a lot of fans wanted the flashy kid. They wanted this high end offensive kid, but all of them admit, everybody who wanted him still admits that this kid's a one way player.
Right, right. He's not going to be out protecting that lead with a minute left. There's some selfishness to his game.
A little bit.
And I mean, I don't want to keep dragging him through the mud.
No.
I mean, Reinbacher's a fine pick, and for the most part, Canadian fans have finally warmed up to him. So I do want to kind of pump the brakes a bit on the Michkov criticism, because at the end of the day, I certainly don't want him to fail. I don't want any kid to fail. So just like Shane Wright last year,
Yeah.
I hope he has a successful career. I just hope it's not a better one than Slavkovsky's. That's not asking too much.
No, and I agree. And to bring it back to Reinbacher, I think that his interview and the interviews they've done about with people around him in his camp is what actually put him over the top, because he only came in. He said, "I'm here to put on my work boots and win a Stanley Cup for you." That's that's been released and everybody knows about that. But I spoke to his World Juniors coach and his off-season defensive coach, and they can't stop raving about just how good of a kid this guy. This kid's got great character, and he's the hardest working guy they've ever seen.
Yeah, and all indications are that as well. And then I was at the development camp and saw him getting interviewed, and funny kid, good, great personality. He made everybody laugh a number of times. Yeah, he's high character, and I think I mean, you just can tell from the fact that he's Austrian and he goes away at a young age to Switzerland to play. The dedication that's there, the sacrifices from his family and him. Very touching, that scene where he FaceTimed, I guess, his parents when he was signing the contract there. That was
Yeah.
another glimpse at his character, and that he's a real kid, genuine kid. That it's too bad that he went through that crap with social media and fans that decided that they should blame him for being chosen by the Montreal Canadiens, because he's just a super nice kid.
Yeah. And I think people, I understand the desire for the high end offensive player, but at the end of the day, they have one of those offensively gifted, smaller framed wingers. Do you really need more?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people have said, well, they haven't had an offensive superstar in 30 years. Well, have you watched the team the last 2 years? Like, how old is Cole? 22? Like, I
Yep,
mean, he's just hitting his prime here. He was on pace for what, 40, at least 40 goals last year, something like that.
48, I believe.
Okay, so not bad for a 21-year-old. Like, you have to look at it like, I mean, I don't see why he can't be a 40, 50 goal scorer. So is that not an offensive superstar that they haven't had in the last 30 years? He's right there in front of them.
I do feel that he does qualify for that definition.
Well, sure. And there's not a, can you name a team in the league that has a 5'7" and a 5'10" winger on the top line that's you know, driving a team to glory in Stanley Cup playoffs? Like, there is, I don't think there's a team in the league alone that has a 5'7" and a 5'10" winger on the top line. You need a mix. And okay, so you have the 5'11" center in between. No, it's when you're looking, especially when you're drafting top 5, top 10, you're trying to project, okay, where does this guy place in our future lineup? You have to,
Yeah,
it's part of the, he's an important piece of the puzzle. So did Michkov, ideally it's Slavkovsky on the other side. And that's what, when they drafted him last year, you can't tell me that they weren't, even Slavkovsky himself said, well, uh, Caulfield and Suzuki need a winger. And that's who I project to be in that slot eventually. Maybe not this year,
yeah.
but maybe this year. In fact, I predicted it last year. So, I mean, I'm expecting it soon enough. And, but was it going to be Michkov playing with Suzuki and Caulfield? It just didn't add up. He would have, it make more sense for him being a second line winger. Now, which do you draft? A guy that's probably going to be on your second line, or a guy that's going to be probably top pairing right defenseman? Well, it's a no-brainer. Even if he's second pairing right defenseman, that's more valuable than a second line winger, no matter how dynamic
True.
he is. So I understood the logic completely in them taking him, and you
Yeah.
know, as we keep saying, it's not the sexy pick, but it's a practical one.
And I think it's in the long term probably going to end up being the more impactful decision because while he's not a fancy type of player, he doesn't put on a show. He's not a PK Subban. He is very capable defensively. He is big. He's 6'2", already almost 195. He can probably play with another 20 pounds, 30 pounds of muscle on him.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I think he's gonna like from what I saw, his lower body's fairly developed, but he can stand to put on another 10 or 15 up top. Uh,
oh yeah.
5 pounds a year over the next 3 years, and he'll be up to, he's at 197, and another 15 would 212, and his growth plates aren't closed either. So
Yeah.
he might grow another. I think he grew in this past year, because I know he was listed at 6'1.5" for at one point, and I like Central had him at, and I'd say to my scouting friends that were at games, like, he looks taller than 6'2", and sure enough, he's 6'2.25", I think is what he ended up measuring at the combine. So, maybe another 3/4 of an inch, 6'3", 220. That, I you have Mayu 6'3", 220, Reinbacher 6'3", 220, Gooley 6'2", 210, or whatever he is, and then throw in Hudson, throw 5'9", 160. He'll get up to 175 or whatever, but you can certainly, if it's those three and Hudson 4 years down the road, he's insulated with three big defensemen that can take care of the front of the net.
Not just that, those are three big defensemen who can actually move. They're capable of keeping up with with his style of play, with his speed, his pace. That's extremely important because just throwing it's not like playing that Nintendo game ice hockey where you got to pick the tiny guy, the medium guy, the giant guy. They and the giant guy's always slow. In this case, you got the giant, but he's fast.
Absolutely. Um, I see some similarities in Gooley and Reinbacher, really. Like there a lot of similarities there. But again, Reinbacher's on that right side, and there was a need there. I think Barron has shown that uh, he may not be a top four defenseman. You know, um, I mean, when they picked him up from Colorado, I suppose the hope was that, but I think we've seen that that's a definite question mark. So, and then Mayu, there's no guarantees there either, especially if something happens, you know. Um, but so it just made sense to add that third young right defenseman that has a lot less question around him, and that you're almost guaranteed it's going to be a top two right defense pairing guy. And it's funny, you know, like last year, I don't see Nemec being top pairing blue liner in Jersey, perhaps ever. Like he might only be second pairing right defenseman. Uh, but they took him second overall. Like there's such it's such an important piece to get a top four defenseman, regardless of where he ends up playing, because of the fit or the structure of your team. Like Dougie Hamilton, it's going to be a long time before Nemec is better than Hamilton. And there's other defensemen that I think may end up being better than Nemec too. So it didn't matter to Jersey, because you need that top four, those top two pairings wins you Stanley Cups. You got to have them. It doesn't matter whether, I always look back to the big three in Montreal. I know it's going way back, but Guy Lapointe was a second pairing defenseman, but second pairing defenseman that's in the Hall of Fame, right? So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was such a huge piece for them to have the guy on the second pairing that could and should be on a first pairing. And it just made them so 40 to 50 minutes a game. Bowman had either Lapointe or Robinson out there. You know, wow. How are you going to beat that? It didn't happen very often.
No. And with the way the NHL is going now, the way they're building blue lines, where you have to have those larger, mobile defensemen who play in transition. That's the way the NHL is going now. So the value placed on those types of players has increased way more than a smaller scoring winger.
Oh, for sure. Vegas had their top scorer this season was 68 points, I believe it was, Eichel.
Yeah.
So was it high-powered offense that won the cup for them? No, it was their six defensemen. You know, was there a deeper group of big, mobile, uh, good puck moving defensemen than Vegas's? No, I think that was the key to them winning a cup. They did it with a friggin' backup or a third string goalie as well, you know, who didn't look bad in the playoffs, but when you've got that defense core in front of you,
Yeah.
it certainly it was a huge reason why Vegas won a cup.
I mean, if you were to ask any Habs fan, would you want an Alex Pietrangelo on your team right now? I don't think you'd find anyone who'd say no.
No, and Reinbacher is has been compared to to Alex, and I mean that's obviously his ceiling if he ends up being
Yeah.
that good, but I see a lot of similarities there. Just
Same style.
yeah, same, close to the same size, same style. Um, not a not gonna get 80 points in a season, but and not the most physical player in the league, but just does everything so well. Um, it just has all the tools to be a top pairing defenseman, and that's Reinbacher as well. And I mean, down the road, if it's Gouli and Mayu, Reinbacher and Hudson, who cares? There doesn't have to be a top pairing and a second. That's just what could be considered two first pairing, defensemen. Stick them out there, play them 40, 45 minutes a game, and get a lot of points, keep the puck out of your net, and win games.
Now we're talking about pairings, and you mentioned earlier Hudson and Reinbacher. Now you saw these two paired up at the development camp, and I think it's the Canadiens trying to build some chemistry between the two because they see what we all see, and that's two players that complement each other. What did you see out of that pairing?
Yeah, frickin' frack. Well, I heard that Hudson was pretty happy about the pick and was texting a couple of the guys. And what I saw was Hudson already foresees that. He wants that to be the case down the road, and he got an early start on it. He was feeding Reinbacher. You saw that scrimmage, I gather, and just he every chance that he got to get the puck on Reinbacher's stick, he did so because he wanted the kid to score. The top 5 pick to score in front of the sold out crowd at the Bell Complex. So it was it was refreshing to see, because I've been saying it for a few months now that if they do take Reinbacher, I see that being the thinking that what a great compliment to Lane Hudson, which would give Hudson the capability of being in a top 4 role 5-on-5, and then just being I think we all see that the high potential he has to be a power play quarterback. It's just it's up there with Fox and McCarr as far as his potential offensively on the power play goes. So, if you can find him a steady role 5-on-5, he'll also obviously generate a lot of offense 5-on-5 as well. So big picture, when and I think Stu Cowan brought it up. Well, how does this help the offense? Well, if drafting Reinbacher ultimately results in Lane Hudson being able to play a top 4 role that he otherwise wouldn't have, there's a lot of offense that you're generating just from that fact alone, because Hudson produces offense. He produces points. Whether it's 5-on-5 or on the power play, he's always producing offense. So there's your offense right there. Now you have those guys out playing with Caulfield, Slafkovsky, and Suzuki in 3 years' time. I don't see why those five can't create and score a ton of points.
And I know a lot of fans have been pushing for more analytics with the Canadiens, and with Chris Boucher, they've gotten that. They've gotten a better and larger analytics group with the Habs. And you just look at the analytics, the numbers behind Reinbacher, and everything points to him being an ideal fit for someone like Lane Hudson, who could also become like a Quinn Hughes type of defenseman.
Yeah, absolutely. So if drafting Reinbacher results in Montreal having a 70-point defenseman and having the guy that can protect him and that will enable him to play 20 plus minutes a game. That's, you talk about adding offense, that's adding offense and piles of it. So I also think, they, in the last year, they've added Doc, Slavkovsky, and Newhook. Three
Yeah.
top 16 picks, all under the age of 23. Lots of offensive potential there. So this thought that they haven't been, and then they have Suzuki and Caulfield on top of it. So there's 5 of spots in the top 6 going forward. Now, if Monahan's the other one, he was a top 5 pick too. All of these guys, high pedigree, high offensive potential. To me, that there isn't a lack of potential offense there. What there is youth, and we need patience. And if these guys grow and reach their offensive ceilings, going to look back at 2 and 3 years and say, "Oh, geez, funny that wanted to draft the 5'10" winger that year. Remember that when?" So I see the way the Canadiens are planning this, and I think Reinbacher is an important piece of that future puzzle.
And that's just that they're trying to build a team, not trying to just pick out, this player, that player. They need to find people that not only suit a need, that have the skill, but fit with their overall plan. So it's not like they're just going in and throwing a dart at the board. They're putting in the effort, they're putting in the work to find the guys that they feel are the best fits. Now, clearly, they have to develop these people, and some of the work is now focused on goaltending. And they went out and picked 3 goalies in this draft, which seemed to upset people, even though they knew it was coming. It was just, I think it's because they traded those picks for Newhook, who I think is going to be an excellent addition to the team. It's just everyone had their hearts set on that late first and that early second round pick.
Yeah, well, going into the draft, you're looking at, geez, they could have had 3 guys in my top 30, or,
Yeah.
But again, there's one spot, as far as I'm concerned, available in the top 6 going into the future, and they'll have a high pick again probably next year, and that's probably where they intend on getting that 6th piece, right? They've got the defense set now, going forward. Now, there's a pile of defensemen that are highly touted next year, and again, people have said, "Well, why did you not wait?" Well, you don't know where they're going to pick next year. The defensemen may not develop as just like the year Cal Foote and Tim Liljegren were top 5 ranked going into their draft year, and then by the time the draft came around, I wouldn't even taken them in the first round. But so you can never, don't count your chickens before they're hatched when it comes to that kind of stuff, where you're projecting a year ahead of time which position's going to be strong. But also, let's say 5 defensemen go in the top 10. Maybe the Habs end up with the top winger on the draft board, just like they ended up with the top defenseman on this draft board. Well, back-to-back years, you can come away with potentially a top defenseman and a top winger. That's not a bad thing either. So I think that's the long-term plan. This year in the top 10, there were a lot of centers that ended up going. And, there was there a winger? I don't think there was a winger in the top 6, right? So
No.
Um, it wasn't really thought of as a high end wingers in this draft if if Carlson and Smith end up being centers, as I believe that those teams hope, because they picked them that high. So so Montreal took the top defenseman. Again, I don't think you can go wrong. You can't have too many defensemen. They're going to have some great trading chips, and that's the other angle too.
Yeah.
Where are they going to get this offense? And well, uh, there's only 3 left defense spots, and there's probably 7 down the road that are going to play in the NHL. So they've got 3 or 4 really good young defense prospects that they're going to be able to perhaps package to fit a piece in there in the top 9 that they're going to need down the road. So it's not all it's not just like it's a chess game for these guys. There's
Yeah.
many moving pieces, and they're not just thinking one piece at a time. They're thinking, you have to look at it like, well, the roster is going to be a lot different in a couple of years. That some of these defensemen are going to be traded. They've already traded a couple of them, Romanov and Edmondson. Well, there's 2 more coming in the next couple of years. We just don't know who they are at this point, but they'll find that other top 9 forward piece that they need by dealing excess left defenseman, I think.
I think they've got some top 9 potential players already in their system. They can use them as
Yes.
well to trade for a slightly better player in the future. I mean, you have Farrell and Yolonen. Beck is going to be on his way soon. Machar, Kidney, Roy, Heineman. That's a lot
Kapanen.
of prospects with
Always
that.
Kapanen. He's my top ranked forward on draft lists, and he's always the guy that kind of gets overlooked too. I think he's better than Beck. I see him as the future 3rd-line center, and
That's just it. Yeah.
Beck could be on his wing, or maybe the 4th-line center. Imagine Owen Beck is your 4th-line center. I mean, that's going to be a pretty good team in 2 or 3 years, I think.
And that again, while all those prospects have the potential to fill those needs, maybe half of them make it. Well, that's still almost a full roster of
No,
players on their way up.
well, exactly. I think Roy could be a top 6 forward. I mean, he certainly showed
Good.
that potential. I mean, he's been one of the best junior players in Canada the last 2 years. Was excellent at the World Juniors. I think he's shown enough defensively now that he could fit a 3rd-line role if that's what he ends up being, because he's not maybe fast enough to be in the top 6. We'll see. But certainly he's got the smarts, vision, puck skills to be to land a top 9 role. And I mean, there's Raphael Harvey Bernard, who we didn't even mention, who's only 24, that played like a top 6 forward at times last year when he got the opportunities. So yeah, there's a lot of pieces there, and they're going to keep adding more, including, I think, next year at the draft they'll probably get a winger. They needed to shore up goaltending, and it's funny, like when they traded away that 1st and 2nd, it was or sorry, the 2 seconds, or no, it was a 1st and 2nd, 31 and 37.
1st and 2nd, yep.
Yeah, you get to the 4th round, and one NHL scout said it well to me, like you're not gonna get a top 6 forward in the 4th round. Like, the odds of that happening are not very high. So you can go for this 5'9" high scoring USHLer or something like that. They could have gone that route, but um, instead they went the uh, get those goalies,
Yeah.
add three to the system, fill out the depth. They were certainly good. I mean, I didn't focus on goalies at the camp. I never really do, but they were solid. And in the scrimmage, there was only like 3 or 4 goals, I think, in the whole scrimmage, and that's nonstop, 4-on-4. So they look pretty solid, and um, who knows? Maybe next year they even add another one in the top 40 or something like that. So they're going to have more than 7 picks again
Yeah.
in the next 2 drafts. So they're just going to keep adding young assets, and at this point, their under 24 talent it's got to be right at the top of the league, and that's encouraging for the future.
Well, I know a lot of lists that look at prospect depth. They have the Canadiens right at the top, either first, second, or third on any of their lists. Um,
Yeah,
and when you're looking at the goaltenders in this draft, there's Trey Augustine and Hrabel. They were all at the top of people's lists, but Jacob Fowler was considered to be in that competition for top goaltender, and they
yeah.
got him at number 69. So I don't think that's a bad pick.
No, no. I mean, the numbers are there, right? Um,
Yep.
the physique and the height weren't ideal, and that's why he didn't go in the top 2 rounds. But certainly, as far as picking a goalie that stops pucks, he was arguably the best in the draft. So I've always, my simplistic look at goaltending at the very top. Most important thing for me is that they stop pucks. And if they if they stop more pucks, their save percentage is higher than the other guys, then I think that they're doing okay. So um,
Yeah.
Fowler was lights out in the playoffs, and I guess he's always been a winner when it comes to the big games. He just steps up, really competitive, really smart. Uh, have a goaltending. Well, he's an agent now. He was a scout, former goalie who says athletically, you don't know how he does it, but he does because he's just the smartest goalie by far in this draft class, and competitive, and comes up with the big saves. He I brought up the name with a couple of guys, Tim Thomas,
Yeah.
where I think there's some similarities there. Now, if he can, pull off a Tim Thomas once or twice playoff time for the Canadiens down the road, we'll take that for a 3rd round pick.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was speaking to a couple of agents and some others while we're waiting around for our flights to get to Nashville because shit got weird with all the flights going in. And one of them brought up Fowler's name before the draft even happened, and he called him a gamer. So
Yeah, yeah.
can't be upset with that pick at all.
No, no. And especially at 69 overall, because the odds are that probably less, 70% chance that he never plays, whoever you pick at that point. So
Yeah.
why not go with the goalie that stops pucks?
And Habs fans do like those goalies.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Kenny Dryden used to stop a few, and that he he seemed to do okay.
He did okay. I mean, if you're into those Hall of Fame Stanley Cup winner type of goaltenders, he's okay. So before I let you go, you watch the development camp, you watch the draft. You're going to be putting out some prospect uh, previews, just breaking down prospects for people. on Tony Marinaro's Sick Podcast channel. So that's a big deal. So I'm looking forward to that. But before we get to that, what expectations do you have for the off season? Like one major piece of business you feel that has to get done before Hughes can go down and hang out on the beach?
Hmm. I think he's got to try to dump Hoffman's contract there. Um, Now, why did they not buy? A lot of teams bought out guys. Is there not? What's the, you know, how come Hoffman wasn't bought out? I'm a little surprised about that, but is it, can they not do it cap wise, or does Molson not want to dole out the money, or like, I don't know. I was a little surprised that Hoffman wasn't bought out. Like, there's only a year left, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it would be a huge hit, I don't think, on their structure, but and with the
No,
cap
I don't
going
think
up and
so.
stuff, I don't see him having a spot in the lineup. And every time I do you know, kind of jot together 12 names, um, I don't have a spot for him. So uh, I
No.
don't know unless you can do one of those, here's a draft pick and here's Hoffman type of deals with a team that's trying to get up to but usually that's done either at the draft or, around free agency and not. So I'm starting to wonder if it is the plan really to keep Hoffman on the roster and at the expense of a young kid that probably deserves to be in the lineup. Um, I never liked that. I know Gauthier and Savard and Bergevin were all guilty of that at times, giving spots to the Hemskis and these guys that really shouldn't have been in the lineup, but the coach loved the vets, so had to have the vets over the rookies. And I think it hurt development in the system then. And I just hope that it doesn't come at the expense of a kid that deserves a spot. So I hope that one of Armia or Hoffman or both ends up somehow getting dealt so that the kids, the deserving players get
Yeah.
a full opportunity this year, and you don't have them either being lost on waivers or going down to the minors when they shouldn't. So I think that's what needs to be done at this point. And I'm happy with the roster going into the year. I don't see them having to really add anything at this point because I don't know that the expectations are that they're going to make the playoffs this year. But I do think that there's such a good young core here. And if they get off to a good start and the momentum, they get some momentum built up and confidence that it, the sky's the limit with this group, especially with Caulfield, Suzuki, Gooley, like all these guys can make big steps this year. I think they're at that age where they can really make another important step in their development. And if you get the goaltending, Montreal, I think, will be very competitive this year. And just pray that the injuries.
Yeah.
It's not like the last 2 years. It's just been ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, the changes in the medical staff, I'm hoping translate to at least a third of those injuries, gone off the top because they're setting records for man games lost every
Yeah.
freaking year. It's just, you can't compete that way. You just can't.
No. And it's very frustrating. Like 3 of the last 4 years, it's just ridiculous the amount. Like I don't think another team has come close. You know,
No,
it's
no,
year
not
after
even.
year. So um, it's the part where I think Montreal's the expectations are low. So that's another reason why they might just surprise a bit this year, because
Yeah.
teams like Buffalo and Ottawa, the pressure's on them now. They keep being dubbed the up and coming teams, while Montreal's not mentioned at all at this point. What if Buffalo and Ottawa get off to another slow start, which they've been prone to do the last few years? Um, the pressure will mount. The GMs are in trouble, especially in Ottawa. They make a panic move or two. They pick up a Corpusalo. Well, he had hip surgery 2 years ago. What if he gets hurt again? Then what? So it's going to be interesting to see if Tampa. I can see Tampa coming back to the pack a bit this year. They just keep losing pieces, and eventually that catches up with you. The
Yeah.
the core is getting older. It would not surprise me if they're in a battle for the playoffs this year. So, which one of the young teams steps up? Detroit could be a lot better. Montreal, and I mean, I get it. They had a lot less points than Buffalo and Ottawa, so those two are considered to be the teams that could steal a spot. But you have to factor in the crazy injuries that Montreal had too, and for that reason, I think it'll be none of those teams are going to be poor. I don't think this year, and it'll be a good race in the division. It should be a lot of fun.
Well, and if you look at the Canadiens last year, before all the injuries started to really pile up, that first couple of months, they were near a playoff spot, not in one, but close to one and competitive. And if they can get a full season like that, where they end up close to 500, I think that's a win. Gives
Yeah,
them meaningful games all year long, and a couple of bounces that go their way, you just never know.
no, for sure. And it'll be interesting with Monahan, and I mean,
Yeah,
if they are in the playoff race come trade deadline, what do they do with these guys, right? If Monahan has a really good
so.
season, you got to offer him an extension. I think, if they're anywhere close to competing, Monahan's healthy and he plays like he did last year. As long as he doesn't want 8 million a year, uh, you gotta look at possibly extending him too. You can keep piling up draft picks, but there's only top six spots, and I think five of them are spoken for down the road. So, the answer isn't in getting late first round picks as the be all to end all. At some point, you have to say, okay, this is one of the veterans that we want to help lead the young core, because you need a few veterans. You just can't.
Yeah.
No team has won strictly with 24 under 24 talent. You get the elders that pass on the knowledge to the youngins and lead the way. And Matheson's one of those, obviously. But you need them up front too. And I think Monahan, to me, it'll be interesting to see if he's kept around, if he's healthy, if they consider giving him a contract extension, because he came back. I think he likes it in Montreal, obviously, right?
Yeah.
At the salary that he came back, surely he could have got that more than that somewhere else. It's telling me that he likes what Montreal is doing. He likes the city. He's all you hear about is what a great leader he is too. The kids love him. So that's another piece that'll be it's another chapter that will be interesting to follow this year, because I don't think it's a given that they just turn around and trade him at the deadline for yet another draft pick.
Yeah, at some point you need NHL players to play in the NHL. Having veterans, of course, is helpful. Having guys with the experience as well is helpful. When you think of you look at the Canadiens lineup. Suzuki, Caulfield, both have been to a final. They know what it takes to get there. Newhook, they just got him. He's a cup winner. He knows what it takes to get there.
Yeah,
That's an important aspect of bringing some of these guys in.
yeah, for sure. No, it's I like the way they're building, and it'll be especially fun to see how Slavkovsky looks at camp.
Yeah,
He got a second half of the year. Got to sit back, watch the North American game from the cheap seats for a half season. You know, keep getting into the room, being shown video, learning the North American game. I don't think, I mean, obviously getting injured wasn't a good thing, but the way he was struggling offensively because he was in a slump at the time. Um, it could almost be a blessing that he got that half season off where the pressure, didn't build with because if he'd have gone another 20 games and not scored a goal, you know how fans were already getting riled up about how he was a bust and this and that because he wasn't scoring. It would have just
right.
mounted like it did with KK, and you know, maybe getting that half year away, maturing a bit, continuing to learn the North American game with the coaching staff, with the video sessions, with sitting in the stands and watching the games. I think in the long run, he'll come to camp and it'll be a little less deer in the headlights type scenario for him. I think he'll be ready to go, and we might see a significant jump in his confidence and production this year.
Well, that would be fun to watch, and more importantly, a full healthy season. So
Absolutely.
that that right there would be a massive step forward. So that's pretty much everything that I had for notes to talk about. Was there anything else that you wanted to bring up?
No, my time's up here. Got to go head to Costco.
Oh yeah, the fun that is just shopping at Costco. Oh God,
Well,
I
that's where
hate
you're
crowds.
heading.
I hate. Oh
That's where you're
Jesus.
heading to. So I don't
Yeah,
know that I don't know that we'll be in the same one, but
doubtful. At
all
least it's
right, my
yours. You
friend.
can go across the river and go buy some beer. It's yours.
Yeah, good point.
So yeah, that's it for me. I want to thank you for coming back to the show. You're always welcome back. I'm looking forward
Good.
to the next projects that you have coming down the pipe. I think it's going to be really fun to watch. I think it's going to be well, it's going to be a quiet off season. I think next season is going to make up for it. So again, thank you for coming, and
Thank you.
to my listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. And remember, if you're